Good morning, everybody. I'm going to make this one as quick a show as possible. Just a few things to cover today. And as I like to do, I always talk about the weather a little bit. Another chilly morning, but they're just going to get chillier. It is Southern California, and days are beautiful, and there are palm trees here, but it's also very cold at night. It's kind of a desert climate. And the sun just starting to poke out from behind the clouds. It's a mostly cloudy sky this morning, but not really going to warm up either today too much, but when that sun does come out, it's very pleasant. At any rate, on screen here you see that I have highlighted some teams that are going to play a big role in the drama that goes down in week 13. This is the final week of the regular season coming up. We all take a rest on week 14. Nobody will play as we get ready for the postseason, which begins in week 15. But right here you have a list of the bubble teams, starting with California, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and Penn State. And right off the top, I want to say that California is not a bubble team, but there is maybe some shifting in the standings that could take place. If they lose, I don't think they can overtake anybody if they win, although we need to look into that a little bit. That's something I didn't look at, but I don't think that they're going to win the tiebreaker with Maryland. And actually, while I'm thinking about that, what the heck, let's just get over here and check it out. Looking at California and their schedule, I'm seeing that Maryland was a loss. So I don't think that California has a shot at moving up in the standings. I think they can't get any higher than they are. They have a 7-5 record currently, so a victory paired with a loss by Maryland gets them to equal records, but by virtue of the tiebreaker, they would lose in that scenario if they were to win and Maryland was to lose. Now, versus Colorado, maybe a different story. Let's look here again, and you've got a loss against Colorado. So that's solved right there. California is pretty much locked into the number 5 spot, possibly could drop in the standings if they lose and some other teams win. Also, I want to point out here that Michigan, to your right, is actually eliminated. They have lost all of their tiebreaker games. They have lost to Alabama, Georgia, Cal, Penn State, I think. I think they've lost every game against tiebreaker teams. And just to be sure of that, let's go over here and look at Michigan. Look at their record on the season. And as you can see, there's the Georgia loss. There's Alabama. They did beat Penn State. That's one victory that they got. But then they also lost to California. So they have an abysmal record against bubble teams, as you can see there, with only one win. And Penn State basically is in a situation where they're playing against Alabama, and it looks to me like the winner of that game is going to go to the postseason championship bracket, and the loser is going to the non-championship bracket to play for, at best, a appearance in the Holiday Bowl, which is for the 7th overall pick. And I keep on flashing this screen here when I'm looking for things. I just wanted to point this out from yesterday's video that I got this wrong. I thought that Maryland had played New Mexico in the semifinal game, and it was actually Appalachian State. So my apologies to Mark Jones and his App State Outlaws, as they were the team that got beaten by Maryland in the semifinal. It was not New Mexico. And of course, this year, Appalachian State has turned to Colorado. That's the new program that they have assumed. And Colorado has a big game coming up this week against Michigan. Michigan, a team that upset the San Diego State Aztecs, the number 1 team at that point, knocked them down to number 2, and pretty much took them out of a Rose Bowl bid unless New Mexico loses this week. That's the only hope that the Aztecs have now, is New Mexico losing in their game. And I think New Mexico is, if I'm not mistaken, playing against Tulane. No, let's just have a look here. New Mexico is playing against Ohio State. Ohio State, not an easy game. I mean, this is one that they could lose right here, as you can see. New Mexico hasn't been too bad of late. They always score in the 40s and better, so they stand a pretty good chance of beating Ohio State in this one, but you never know. If they do happen to lose that game and then San Diego State can get over against Fresno State, which should happen, then maybe the Aztecs get back to that Rose Bowl berth. but I don't see that happening. At any rate, getting back to this group of teams, yeah, I see the teams. Obviously, I just said California is clinched. I think Georgia's in a pretty good spot here. Michigan is pretty much eliminated. And then it comes down to Alabama and Penn State. The winner of that game is going to go. The loser is going to be out. So that's what it comes down to. I think Georgia and California look pretty good. And I'll get into some of the details of these games real quickly before I go today. Like I say, it's not going to be a very long video. But yeah, again, the winner between Alabama, Penn State gets in, and the loser's out. Michigan's already out. So it basically comes down to that. You've got Cal and Georgia. Georgia is playing this week against Tulane, which is not an easy game, but either team is going to have a quarterback in that one. So it's going to come down to the extra players. But, if Georgia loses that game, even if they take a loss in that one, I think they're set up pretty well here. And we'll check out Georgia in the standings. We'll check out their game schedule. Bear with me. Okay, so we got Georgia's schedule right here. And they have a big win against Alabama last week. They did lose to Penn State. That hurts them, but Penn State is in control of their own destiny. They also have a victory over Michigan. That one's going to be big. And they lost to Cal. I think they're basically 500 against the teams that they're going to have to beat in tiebreakers. And I think they've got this thing wrapped up, basically, especially if they can beat Tulane. That will be important that they just get that win. But they're already sitting on 7 wins, and they have a 500 record. And with Michigan being out, and then the loser of the Penn State-Alabama game being eliminated, essentially, I just see Georgia in this thing. I think they've already clinched. It just comes down to shuffling. Who's going to be playing in which bowls? The first round is going to be in week 15, and that leads to the BCS Final Four Championship Series. So there'll be 3 games in week 15, and those teams in those games will be battling for the right to go to that Final Four tournament, and just 1 win away from a national championship game. So Alabama coming into Penn State, big game for Alabama. They've been a team that looked like they were going to get in, and Mark Jones has done a great job building this program. This is a team that was in the depths just 1-2 years ago. They were sitting in the last 2 places. I think they probably even went to the Sun Bowl. And the same thing goes for California. So Mark Jones and Phil Johnson, 2 great general managers in this league, have taken their teams from the doldrums up to championship status, where they could actually challenge for a title. And if the ball bounces a certain direction, they could actually win a title. It could happen. Anything can happen. So congratulations to those guys. Job well done bringing those clubs out from the cellar. And the thing is it shows that you can do it in this league, even though the winning teams get the higher draft picks the next season. With position restrictions, when you have too much talent at a certain position, you can't draft there. That allows the teams at the bottom to pick up those wide receivers, those quarterbacks, and those running backs that they're going to need to make their programs better and allow them to move forward in the future. And they've done that. These teams are an example of that. And another team that's an example of that, I'll just, beat my own drum here, the San Diego State Aztecs have built from being a horrible team not too long ago, being a team that could only get to the Peach Bowl, which isn't a bad bowl to get to, but they were definitely not a top team and not a championship contender. And that club has built itself up. I've built that team up with some maybe lucky draft picks or maybe wise draft picks. I picked up not Chris Olave, but Garrett Wilson. He was the consolation prize for not getting Chris Olave. Also, CeeDee Lamb came with the club early on. CeeDee Lamb's been part of this program for a long time, but building of the running game. A.J. Dillon was a recruit that I brought into this team. Ramondre Stevenson, another recruit. And then when we were fortunate enough to win the championship last year, the pick of C.J. Stroud, which has worked out very well. You can build under this format, and that's what I've always wanted to prove, so that everybody at the bottom of the standings, teams down here like Oregon and Fresno State, teams that have had very little or no success. Tulane has actually had success. They've had a hard luck season, but these teams like Oregon and Fresno State that are in the doldrums right now, you know, they can build these teams. And AJ Nardi, who is currently running the Oregon Ducks, is an excellent owner, excellent general manager. So I think if anybody can do it, he can. And he protected all of his guys with the red shirt this year. He's going to bring Justin Herbert back for another go next year. Maybe the Ducks make some noise. And in the offseason, I'll probably make some videos on that. But at any rate, getting back to the matchups, I wanted to look at all of them today. Not all of them, but at least the key ones. We've got Colorado, Michigan. In this one, Colorado is just looking to solidify their position in the standings. Michigan has no hope of getting in, but they would like to play spoiler perhaps. Both teams are going to be without key wide receivers in this game. Michigan without Chris Olave, possibly with a concussion, and Colorado's Gabe Davis is out with a bye. Also, Colorado will be without two of their best defensive players, linebackers Isaiah Simmons and Patrick Queen will miss this game due to a bye. So that's going to be a tough game for Colorado to win. They would like to hold on to their number 3 ranking, I'm sure. If they lose this game, there's a chance they slip to 4th behind Maryland. Another game of consequence, of course, Georgia. It's all about playoff positioning and who they're going to play in that first round. But, I think all these teams ranked 5, 6, and 7 are going to have tough battles in the first round, week 15, because they're playing the likes of San Diego State. They're playing Maryland. They're playing Colorado. But either Georgia or Tulane will have a quarterback, so for various reasons. So this game comes down to just the peripheral players. And other than that, we've got Alabama versus Penn State. Yeah, let's talk about that one now. That is the big one that everybody's thinking about right now. Alabama, Penn State. Unfortunately for Alabama, and Mark Jones did mention this in the comments, they do have a problem at quarterback. They do not have their starter, Justin Fields. He is out with a bye. Penn State will have their quarterback, but that being said, Tua Tagovailoa has struggled a little bit of late. He only scored 2 points this last week, and perhaps he struggles again. Seems like Miami's really leaning on their running game a lot. They have a lot of running backs. Maybe Tua is kind of mediocre again this week, and Alabama perhaps can sneak in a win. If they do, if they are fortunate enough to have Tua Tagovailoa struggle, Alabama stands a good chance of winning this game. And as you can see down here, the line has Alabama favored to win this game. I think that's telling for some reason. The system seems to think Alabama is going to win. Now, I think the system doesn't necessarily take into account the buys. That would be my guess. You have Justin Fields out here, as you can see. Gus Edwards going to miss the game, and he's averaging almost 4 points a game. So that would be a big loss. Down here, they're missing Rashad Bateman with a bye. They don't really have a lot of depth in the first place at wide receiver. I don't know. I think it's probably going to come down to defense for Alabama. They do have some decent linebackers, but once again, Terrell Bernard, another key. But at any rate, these middle teams here, again, I don't really have much else to say about it. Should be an exciting weekend. You've got Alabama and Penn State squaring off. Basically, the winner goes to the championship bracket. The loser's out. Michigan, pretty much dust. I don't think they have a chance. I've looked it over. They've lost all the tiebreakers. As good as they are out of it. And I think Georgia and California, I know California has clinched because they have an excellent record against these teams that they would face tiebreakers with. And Georgia has just enough to get into the championship bracket. All that matters now, or all that is to be decided, is who plays who in the first round. If New Mexico suffers a major upset this week against their opponent, then the San Diego State Aztecs perhaps move back into the number 1 spot and go to the Rose Bowl.